Michael, a billionaire used to power and control, left a $1 tip on purpose. But Maria, a hardworking waitress, noticed a folded note hiding beneath her plate. One glance, and her world stopped. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to Ms. Love Stories channel, the place where love, drama, and unforgettable moments come alive. I'm so thrilled you're here, ready to dive into stories that will make your heart race, bring tears, and leave you believing in the power of love. Before we begin, I want to get to know all of you. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from, because in the next video, I'll give a special shout out to some of you amazing viewers from around the world. I can't wait to see how far our love story family reaches. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a single emotional journey. Get ready to feel, laugh, cry, and fall in love all over again, because every story we share here is for you. Now, the story begins. Rose. The scent of fried chicken mixed with the bitter tang of coffee filled the small diner. Maria wiped her hands on her apron, her arms sore, her feet aching from a 12-hour shift that seemed endless. Every tip, every smile mattered. But lately, the tables felt colder, the patrons less human. She balanced a tray with 3 orders. Burgers still steaming, fries crispy, soda fizzing over the edge of a glass. Her hands were steady, but her mind wandered to her son, Leo, asleep at home, counting on her to make tomorrow better than today. Her eyes flicked to the door as a group of men entered. She knew by the way they carried themselves. Power in each step, wealth dripping from tailored suits. One man, taller than the rest, had an aura she couldn't ignore. She had seen him before in magazines, but seeing him in person was different. Michael moved with a calm confidence, the kind that could command a room without saying a word. His watch glinted under the dim lights, and his shoes whispered against the linoleum. He wasn't here for the food, he was here for something else. When the order was placed, Maria poured water and smiled politely, but her heart felt the weight of the day, tired yet wary. She didn't expect anything to change today, until the bill arrived. Miles away, in a sleek, high-rise apartment overlooking the city lights, Michael stared at the small gold card in his hand. He had given away millions before in charities, in anonymous tips, in grand gestures that made headlines. But tonight, it wasn't about money. It was about testing boundaries, about seeing if people could perceive more than the obvious. Could someone notice what hid beneath the surface? Could a small, seemingly meaningless gesture reveal a truth deeper than wealth? Deeper than himself? His fingers traced the edge of a single-dollar bill, folded neatly with a hidden note inside. He thought of the diner, of Maria, of the countless faces he passed every day and never truly saw. And for the first time in years, a flicker of hope stirred. A chance to connect in a way that mattered. The bill arrived with the usual clink of coins. Maria noticed the single-dollar tip, and felt the familiar mix of irritation and resignation. She bent down to pick up the note that had slipped under the plate and froze. The handwriting was unfamiliar, delicate yet intentional, almost commanding her attention. Her pulse quickened as she unfolded it, and the words hit her harder than any tip ever could. Some things are worth more than money, and you are about to find out. Her hands shook. The diner's hum seemed to fade into silence. Outside, the evening sky turned crimson, as if the city itself was holding its breath. Maria didn't know why, but she felt this note would change everything. Have you ever received a message that changed everything? Comment below if you would want to know the truth behind a mysterious note. Maria sat frozen, the note trembling in her hands. Around her, the diner's chatter went on, plates clattering, chairs scraping against the floor, but she didn't hear it. Her eyes darted to the tall man at the corner table, the one who had left the absurd $1 tip. He glanced up briefly, a faint smile brushing his lips, and looked away as if nothing had happened. Her mind raced. Why leave $1? Why a note? And what did he mean by worth more than money? Maria had faced disappointment more times than she could count. Failed bills, landlord's calls, the ache of not making ends meet. But something about this man felt different. Dangerous, perhaps, yet alive. Michael watched quietly, aware of her noticing him. He had seen countless reactions in his life, indifference, greed, surprise. But her pause, the way her hands shook, the hesitation in her glance, it intrigued him more than any flashy headline ever could. He wanted to see if she understood the unspoken message, if she felt it in the way only certain people could. Maria's chest tightened. She slipped the note into her apron pocket and returned the change to him, her fingers brushing the edge of his. It was accidental, almost imperceptible, yet electric. Michael caught it, held the moment just long enough, then looked back at his phone, pretending to check messages. Her shift ended hours later, and she walked home under the glow of streetlights, the note heavy in her pocket. She replayed the moment in her head over and over. Was it a joke? A test? A threat? She shook her head, laughing softly at herself, but deep down, a part of her knew this night would linger far longer than any other. At home, Leo was asleep, his small chest rising and falling. Maria kissed his forehead gently and sat at the kitchen table. She unfolded the note again, staring at the words in the quiet darkness, letting their weight settle in her chest. She couldn't explain why, but a strange warmth mingled with her exhaustion. A feeling that something unexpected was about to enter her life. Meanwhile, miles above in his penthouse, Michael watched the city lights shimmer through floor-to-ceiling windows. He poured himself a drink and thought of Maria. How ordinary yet remarkable she seemed. How the tiniest gesture could reach the places money never could. He wondered if she felt the same pull he did. The unspoken connection that neither had yet named. The night stretched long, the city alive, but in two separate places, two people sat awake, connected by a simple note and a single dollar. A beginning of something neither fully understood yet. The next morning, Maria returned to the diner, the note tucked carefully in her apron pocket. She couldn't stop thinking about it, couldn't stop thinking about the man who had left it. The other servers noticed her distracted air, but she smiled faintly, letting the secret linger only between her and the folded paper. Michael had requested the same diner for breakfast, under the guise of anonymity. He watched from a corner booth, pretending to read the paper in front of him. His eyes kept flicking toward the counter, toward her. Maria moved efficiently, taking orders, refilling coffee, unaware of his gaze. When their eyes met briefly, a spark passed between them. A fleeting moment loaded with unspoken questions. Maria's pulse quickened, and she quickly turned away, pretending to check a plate in the oven. Michael's lips curved into a quiet smile. He had seen reactions before, but not like this. There was curiosity, hesitation, something fragile yet sharp. Later, when the lunch crowd thinned, Maria found herself wiping down a table near the window. The note pressed against her chest through her pocket, reminding her of the strange, powerful feeling it had stirred. She wondered if the world could really hold surprises like this, if someone could see her. Not just her work, not just her smile, but her. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious. Cars honked, people rushed past, but inside the diner, something unspoken hovered. Michael's presence, the note, the absurd tip. They were small gestures, but they carried weight. Maria didn't know how or why yet, but something told her life was shifting in a way she couldn't predict. When the diner closed, Maria lingered by the counter, staring at the plate where the note had first appeared. She could still feel the echo of that small folded paper against her skin. Meanwhile, Michael exited the diner quietly, disappearing into the bustle of the city, but his thoughts stayed with her. It was a beginning neither could name yet. But as the night fell, both Maria and Michael carried the same thought in silence. Some encounters change everything, and the smallest gestures can carry the heaviest truths. Maria couldn't stop thinking about the note. She kept it folded in her apron pocket, pulling it out every chance she got. During her bus rides to work, during lunch breaks, even in the quiet moments before bed, the words haunted her. Some things are worth more than money, and you are about to find out. Her mind spun with possibilities. Was it a cryptic insult, a test, or something else? She hadn't expected anyone to notice her beyond the diner walls. And yet here was a stranger, someone wealthy, someone powerful, someone who had the means to ignore her completely. And instead, he had left her a message. The next day, Maria arrived early at the diner, hoping for an explanation, though she knew it was irrational. She cleaned the tables with extra care, rearranged condiments, polished the counters, and still, her gaze kept darting toward the door. She tried to focus on the work, on the customers, on the hum of the espresso machine, but her mind refused to settle. Every clink of silverware, every greeting from a regular customer, was a reminder that she was waiting for something she couldn't define. Michael, on the other hand, sat in his corner booth, observing her from a distance. His plan was simple: test her reactions, see if she understood the unspoken meaning behind the note. But as he watched her move, he felt something unfamiliar, a pang of tenderness, a curiosity that went beyond fascination. She was graceful without even trying, strong despite the weight of the world pressing on her shoulders, and yet vulnerable in a way only the perceptive could sense. The moment came when he left a second note, this time slipped discreetly into the bill folder. Maria didn't notice immediately, but when she unfolded it during a quiet moment, her breath caught in her throat. "You are more than the world sees. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Her hands trembled. The words weren't just polite, they were personal. Someone had looked through the noise, through the exhaustion and the smallness of her everyday life, and seen her. Really seen her. She felt a lump rise in her throat. She wanted to laugh, cry, and scream all at once. At home that night, she showed the note to Leo. He looked up at her wide-eyed. "Mom, is it like magic?" Maria laughed softly. "Maybe, baby. Maybe it's magic." But inside, she felt the first crack of hope she hadn't allowed herself in years. The world could still surprise her. Someone could notice her worth without asking for anything in return. Meanwhile, Michael replayed her reactions in his mind. Every glance, every hesitation, every flush of emotion. It was all building a connection he hadn't anticipated. The note had worked exactly as intended, but it had also done more than he expected. It had touched him, changed him, reminded him of emotions he hadn't felt in a long time. He realized that his wealth, his control, his careful life of detachment, none of it mattered if he didn't have moments like this, moments where someone saw him and where he saw someone in return. The tension between them grew, though neither had spoken directly yet. Every encounter, every accidental glance, every note, became a silent dialogue. The diner felt smaller, the city louder, and time itself seemed to stretch between them in these small, electric moments. Maria couldn't shake the feeling that her life had pivoted on something so small and fragile. A folded note, a dollar tip, but the weight of it felt enormous. One evening, as she stacked chairs and prepared to close, she heard the familiar click of heels. Michael stepped in, not in disguise this time, but with a calm certainty. He approached her table, his presence filling the room without a word. Maria's heart raced. She didn't know why, she didn't know what to say. He placed a folded piece of paper gently on the counter, and their fingers brushed for the briefest second. "I wanted you to have this in person," he said softly. Maria's breath caught. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a single sentence, simple but devastating in its effect. "I see you, Maria. Truly." The words landed like a bomb. For the first time in years, she felt understood, recognized, and acknowledged. Not for what she could give, not for her work, not for her endurance, but for who she was. Her eyes filled with tears. Why me?" she whispered, barely audible. Michael looked at her. And in that quiet diner, the world outside seemed to disappear. "Because the world needs to see you," he said, his voice low but steady. "And I needed to see you." The moment stretched, loaded with unspoken emotions. Hope, fear, longing, and an emerging connection neither could deny. Maria felt a tremor of excitement, of vulnerability, of anticipation. And Michael felt it too. The gravity of someone real, someone beyond money and appearances, someone who could change everything. And in that charged silence, both understood. This note, this simple act, was not just a message. It was the spark of something larger, something that could ignite their lives in ways neither had expected. The morning after the encounter, Maria felt a swirl of emotions she couldn't name. Excitement mingled with fear, hope tangled with suspicion. She replayed Michael's words over and over in her mind, his calm gaze, the quiet strength in his voice. Yet every time she tried to think about him clearly, doubt crept in. Why would a billionaire notice her? Why would someone with his world care about a waitress in a small diner? She poured coffee for herself and Leo, her hands trembling slightly, spilling a little onto the counter. "Mom?" Leo asked, concern in his young voice. Maria forced a smile. "Nothing, baby. Just tired, that's all." She didn't tell him she couldn't stop thinking about the man who had changed her perception of the world with a few words. At the diner, life continued as usual. Regulars chatted loudly, orders piled up, and the hum of activity kept Maria distracted. But her mind kept drifting back to Michael, to the note, to the strange feeling of being seen. Every time she glimpsed him from a distance, her heart surged, and then faltered when she remembered the gap between their worlds. Wealth, power, privilege, it wasn't her world. And yet, the pull was undeniable. Michael, meanwhile, wrestled with his own resistance. After leaving the diner, he felt a mix of triumph and unease. He had reached out in a subtle, almost playful way, but now the anticipation of her reaction gnawed at him. He hadn't expected to feel this exposed. Watching her from afar, thinking about her gentle hands, the way she smiled despite exhaustion, he felt something that had been missing in years. Vulnerability, longing, connection. Yet he resisted the impulse to act. His life had taught him caution. People often wanted him for what he could give, not who he was. He wasn't ready to risk himself, to risk his carefully constructed walls, for a stranger he barely knew. The following week, their paths continued to cross indirectly. Another note here. A brief glance there, small gestures that carried weight but never fully bridged the distance. Maria told herself she was imagining things, that she was reading too much into a few words on paper. Michael reminded himself that he could not chase someone who didn't know him, that he must remain cautious. Still, the magnetic pull persisted. Each time Maria noticed him, her pulse quickened. Each time Michael saw her, his chest tightened with a mix of desire and fear. Neither of them could act openly yet, but the tension built like a storm beneath the surface. One evening, as Maria closed the diner, she lingered at the counter, staring at the small pile of plates. The city lights outside cast long shadows across the floor. She thought of the note, of Michael, of the strange connection they shared. She wanted to reach out, to call him, to ask him why, but a voice inside her warned caution. What if it was a game? What if it ended in disappointment? What if he didn't feel the same pull she did? Michael, in his penthouse, felt the same resistance. He poured himself a drink and stared out at the city below, thinking of her tired but resolute face, the quiet dignity she carried despite hardship. He wanted to move toward her, to speak, to act, but he hesitated. Wealth had taught him patience, and patience had taught him caution. The fear of rejection, of misunderstanding, of exposure, held him back. Days passed with unspoken tension. Michael left another note, smaller this time, folded into a napkin. Do not rush what is meant to unfold. Maria read it late at night, heart pounding. She folded it carefully and put it back in her drawer. She wanted to believe it, wanted to follow the pull, but fear whispered in her ear. She buried herself in work, in routines, in Leo's laughter, trying to push the growing ache from her chest. And yet, the emotional connection refused to let go. She found herself replaying every glance, every word, every touch. Michael was no longer just a stranger. He was a presence in her mind, a shadow in her heart. But the gap between them, the difference in their worlds, the fear of the unknown, kept her from acting. Michael, too, felt the conflict. Every decision he made, every move he considered, carried risk. Yet doing nothing felt worse. Watching her from afar, imagining her smile, imagining what could happen if they were honest with each other, was intoxicating and torturous. The tension finally reached a breaking point one rainy evening. Maria had stayed late at the diner, closing alone. Michael walked in unannounced, water dripping from his coat. The diner smelled of rain and cleaning supplies, warm lights casting golden reflections on wet floors. Their eyes met, and the unspoken words hung heavy in the air. He stepped forward. Maria, he said softly, I need to see you. Just talk. Her instincts screamed caution, but a part of her, the part that had been stirred by the notes, by the attention, by the inexplicable connection, wanted to respond. She hesitated, the storm outside echoing the turmoil inside her. I can't, she whispered, though her voice trembled. I don't know if I should. Michael nodded, understanding without pressuring. I understand. I just couldn't wait any longer to let you know I feel it too. You're not imagining this. The rain tapped against the windows like tiny drumbeats of fate. Both of them stood there, divided by fear, desire, and the vast differences in their lives. Neither could close the gap, yet neither could walk away. And so they resisted, emotionally, physically, cautiously. But the invisible thread between them tightened with each passing day. They were drawn to each other, yet afraid of the consequences. The note had sparked something powerful, something dangerous, something undeniable. Maria returned home that night, heart racing, mind buzzing, unsure of what to feel. Michael returned to his penthouse, alone, feeling a strange emptiness despite the luxurious silence. Both knew deep down that the story was far from over. The pull between them was growing stronger. Even as they tried to resist, they were on the edge of a choice, between denial and surrender, fear and vulnerability. And the world, indifferent as ever, watched them teeter on the brink, waiting for the spark that would finally ignite their connection. The city was storming that evening, rain pouring in relentless sheets, turning streets into slick mirrors reflecting neon lights. Maria had stayed late at the diner, finishing the last orders and wiping down every counter, her body sore and her mind restless. She had almost convinced herself the notes, the fleeting glances, and the strange pull toward Michael were nothing more than illusions, but the memory of him lingered. His gaze, his words, the quiet authority of his presence haunted her. Just as she locked the front door, a thunderclap echoed through the empty street. She jumped, clutching her bag tighter, when she noticed a sleek black car pull up under the diner's dim awning. The passenger window rolled down, and there he was, Michael, his coat soaked from the rain, hair plastered to his forehead, and eyes fixed on her. "You can't go home in this," he said calmly, stepping out into the storm. Water dripped from his shoulders onto the wet pavement, but his voice held that same composed certainty Maria had noticed the first day. I'll be fine," she stammered, trying to retreat inside. But Michael moved in front of her, blocking the door, not threatening, but not allowing escape either. "I'm not asking," he said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "You need a ride. It's too dangerous out here." Maria hesitated. Every instinct told her to refuse, to run back into the warmth of her apartment and pretend this was a coincidence, pretend he was just a stranger. But the rain soaked her already, the wind whipped around her, and somewhere deep inside, she recognized that refusing him was no longer an option. Something in the look he gave her, calm, patient, insistent, forced her to comply. They slid into the leather seats of his car, the warmth inside a stark contrast to the cold storm outside. Silence stretched between them at first, heavy and loaded, neither daring to speak. Maria stole glances at him, noticing details she hadn't before. The faint crease between his brows, the way his hand rested lightly on the gear shift, the subtle tension in his jaw. He noticed her noticing, and for a brief moment his eyes softened. The storm raged around them, but inside the car, the world felt smaller, cocooned. Maria's hands fidgeted with the strap of her bag, her heart racing not from fear, but from the proximity of him. She wanted to ask questions, to demand explanations about the notes, about the inexplicable pull between them, but the words lodged in her throat. Michael finally broke the silence. "You don't need to explain anything," he said gently. "Not tonight. Just let this happen. Let the rain be the only thing we have to deal with." She wanted to argue, wanted to assert control over her life, but the truth was undeniable. Being near him felt right, impossible as it seemed. Her chest tightened, a mix of anticipation and fear, as they drove through the storm-slicked streets. Every passing streetlight, every windshield wiper sweep, painted a world that seemed both ordinary and charged with electricity. Eventually, Michael pulled over at a quiet cafe still open for the late-night crowd. Steam rose from the cups on the counter, mingling with the warmth of the small space, giving Maria a moment to breathe. The storm outside raged, but inside, they were forced into a closeness neither could ignore. She sat across from him, hands wrapped around her cup of coffee, feeling the heat seep into her fingers, grounding her in the moment. He watched her quietly, waiting, giving her space while also maintaining a subtle gravity that kept her attention fixed. "I still don't understand," Maria admitted finally, her voice low, hesitant. "Why me? Why the notes, the attention, all of this?" Michael leaned back slightly, studying her face. Because I see you. I see who you are, beyond the work, beyond the smile, beyond what the world tells you you're worth. And I wanted to make sure you knew it too. The words settled over her like a blanket, warm and suffocating all at once. Maria's throat tightened. She wanted to cry, to laugh, to run, to stay, simultaneously. She felt exposed in a way she hadn't in years, vulnerable yet understood. Minutes passed in silence, each heavy with the weight of unspoken truths. Then, unexpectedly, Michael reached across the table, his hand brushing hers lightly. It was a simple touch, but it carried a gravity that startled her. She looked up, meeting his eyes, and saw something raw and honest, a reflection of the same desire, the same fear, the same pull she felt inside herself. I don't know if I should feel this way, Maria whispered. It's too much too fast. I don't know either, Michael admitted. But some things aren't about timing. They're about moments. And this right now is one of them. Her heart pounded, a mix of fear, exhilaration, and longing. The storm outside mirrored the storm inside her. She wanted to run, to escape the intensity, but a part of her, the part that had felt invisible, unnoticed, unimportant, was finally awake. The cafe emptied around them, leaving only the hum of the heater, the clink of dishes being cleared, and the sound of rain tapping against the windows. Time slowed, wrapping them in a fragile cocoon of closeness. They weren't ready to confess everything, weren't ready to leap into the unknown. But for the first time, proximity forced them to confront the truth. The pull between them was real, undeniable, and growing stronger with every shared glance, every accidental touch. When the storm finally eased and they stepped outside, Maria realized she had not once thought about walking away. Michael drove her home in silence, the tension lingering like electricity between them. Words unnecessary yet understood. They had crossed a threshold, been forced into closeness, and neither could ignore the shift. At her apartment, as she stepped out of the car, Michael's hand lingered briefly on hers. "Good night, Maria," he said softly. "And thank you for letting this happen." Maria's lips parted, but no words came. She only nodded, her heart racing, her mind spinning. She realized that tonight had changed everything. The distance, the fear, the resistance, they were no longer enough to keep them apart. And Michael, watching her disappear into the glow of her doorway, felt it too. The pull, the spark, the undeniable connection. Forced proximity had created an emotional bond that neither could deny. For the first time, the gap between them didn't feel insurmountable. The notes had sparked curiosity, but the closeness had ignited something far deeper. The first real flicker of intimacy, vulnerability, and undeniable connection. The next evening, Maria couldn't stop thinking about Michael. The memory of his hand brushing hers, the warmth of his presence, and the quiet intensity of his gaze lingered like a shadow in her mind. She replayed every word, every glance, every moment, trying to understand why a stranger had managed to stir feelings she hadn't felt in years. As she cleaned the diner after closing, Maria found herself opening one of the notes again. The words seemed smaller in the dim light, but somehow heavier, as if carrying more meaning than she had noticed before. "You are more than the world sees." Her chest tightened. How could someone she barely knew see her in a way her own life hadn't allowed? She touched the note lightly, tracing the handwriting, when her phone buzzed. A message from her sister flashed on the screen. "Are you okay? You've been distracted lately. What's going on?" Maria sighed, tears threatening to fall. She hadn't told anyone about the notes or Michael. Who could she tell? It wasn't just a story. It was a puzzle, a spark, a challenge to everything she believed about herself. She typed back a vague reply and slipped the phone into her pocket, but the curiosity gnawed at her. Meanwhile, Michael was at home, sitting by the window in his penthouse. Rain tapped softly against the glass, and he stared at the city below, lost in thought. He had left the diner that night feeling exhilarated but uneasy. Maria had stirred something in him he hadn't felt in years, a mix of longing, hope, and fear. He wanted to reach out again, but caution held him back. He wasn't used to feeling vulnerable, and yet, he couldn't ignore the pull of this connection. The following day, fate intervened in a way neither expected. A minor accident outside the diner. A car skidding on the wet pavement trapped Maria near the entrance, unable to leave. Michael, coincidentally passing by, saw the commotion and rushed to her side. Without thinking, he helped her to the curb, shielding her from the chaos of honking horns and shouted warnings. "Are you hurt?" he asked, voice low, concern etched across his face. Maria shook her head, though her hands trembled. "No. I'm fine. Just startled." He studied her carefully. "Maria, you've been carrying so much. I can see it in you." The words struck her harder than any note or glance ever had. No one had ever said that to her before. Not a stranger, not a friend, not even family. Someone actually saw the weight she carried, the exhaustion, the longing, the hope that never fully blossomed. "Why do you care?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the fading rain. Michael hesitated, then answered quietly. "Because I see you, and I know what it's like to feel invisible, to be overlooked. I couldn't let this pass without trying to reach you." Her chest ached, a mix of disbelief and relief. She wanted to pull away, to protect herself, but a part of her knew he was right. He understood in ways no one else had. Later, at the diner, after the crowd had gone, Maria found herself opening up to him more than she had to anyone in years. "I've always worked hard," she confessed, voice shaking slightly. "I've done everything I could for Leo, for my family, but it never feels enough. People see the job, the exhaustion, but not me. Not really." Michael listened, nodding, his eyes never leaving hers. "I know," he said softly, "and I can see why you feel that way. But it doesn't define you. None of it does. You're more than the life you've been given." Maria felt tears slide down her cheeks. No one had ever spoken to her like this, as if her life, her struggles, her worth mattered. Not for what she did, but for who she was. Then tentatively she asked, "And you, Michael? Who are you beyond the wealth and the headlines? What do you carry that no one sees?" He paused, and for the first time, Maria saw the shadows behind his eyes. "I've built walls," he admitted. "Walls of money, of control, of distance. I've avoided letting anyone in because I was afraid of being hurt, of being seen. And yet here you are. And I can't ignore it." The words hung in the air, heavy with truth. Maria felt her own walls falter. The connection between them had grown beyond curiosity. It was now deeply personal, fragile yet undeniable. As they talked, Michael's vulnerability began to mirror hers. He shared stories of loss and loneliness, of parents who never truly understood him, of relationships that crumbled because of the distance he put between himself and the world. Maria listened, her heart swelling with empathy and understanding. And in that small diner, as the rain continued to fall outside, the emotional bond between them deepened. It was no longer just attraction or curiosity, it was recognition of shared wounds, of lives shaped by hardship and longing. They were two people, flawed and fragile, seeing each other fully for the first time. Maria realized something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years: trust. And Michael realized he hadn't felt seen in this way since ever. The storm outside mirrored the storm within. The chaos, the vulnerability, the unexpected beauty of connection. By the end of the night, as they reluctantly parted ways, both carried a new weight. The weight of truth, of exposure, of knowing that the bond forming between them was real, fragile, and potentially transformative. Maria returned home, exhausted but awake in a way she hadn't been for years. Michael returned to his penthouse, restless, haunted by her vulnerability and his own. The notes had been the spark, the proximity had intensified the flame, and now, the revelation of their pasts had fanned it into something dangerous, something undeniable. Both understood it. They could no longer pretend this was a casual connection. Something profound was beginning, and it demanded acknowledgement, courage, and the willingness to face old wounds. And for the first time, they felt the fragile, thrilling possibility of love. Not the instant, effortless kind, but the deep, messy, real kind that could change their lives forever. The week following the revelation of their pasts, Maria and Michael found themselves thinking about each other constantly. Every note, every glance, every small encounter lingered in their minds like a quiet, persistent song. The emotional pull that had begun with the mysterious tip and the first note had now grown into something more profound. A shared vulnerability neither could ignore. One Saturday evening, Michael surprised Maria by showing up at the diner just as she was finishing her shift. Rain had left the streets glistening, reflecting the neon signs and streetlights in a way that made the city feel alive and intimate. Maria's heart skipped when she saw him, not just because of who he was, but because of how effortlessly he made space for her in a world that had rarely noticed her. "I thought I'd help with the cleanup," Michael said lightly, rolling up his sleeves. His voice carried a casual warmth, but Maria could feel the underlying intensity. "You don't need to," she said, trying to mask her nervousness with a smile. But inside, a thrill ran through her chest. She had never had anyone, not even family, offer to step into her world so directly. "I want to," he insisted, picking up a stack of plates with careful precision. "Besides, I need to understand how you survive this chaos every day." Maria laughed softly, the sound unfamiliar in its lightness. "Survive? I'd say I mostly just keep the chaos at bay." For the next hour, they worked side by side, quietly sharing space, letting small gestures, the brushing of hands, a shared smile, the casual exchange of dirty plates, speak louder than words. There was a rhythm to it, a delicate intimacy that neither had expected, yet both felt deeply. After the last plate was stacked and the coffee machine cleaned, Michael suggested a walk. The streets were quieter now, the rain leaving a cool mist in the air. They walked side by side, a comfortable silence enveloping them. "I can't stop thinking about you," Michael admitted quietly, breaking the stillness. His voice was low, almost reverent, carrying the weight of sincerity. Maria glanced at him, her chest tightening. "And I can't stop thinking about you," she admitted, her words barely above a whisper. Her vulnerability surprised her, but the truth was undeniable. She wanted this connection, even if it frightened her. As they walked, Michael shared small details about his life that he had never spoken aloud. His love for early morning city walks, his passion for classical music, the rare moments when he felt truly free. Maria shared stories of her childhood, her dreams, the sacrifices she had made for Leo, and the times she had felt invisible in a world that never paused for her. The sharing was raw, honest, and fragile. There was laughter, too, unexpected, light laughter that came from noticing quirks in each other, from finding humor in small disasters, and from feeling a comfort they had not known in years. Maria found herself telling Michael things she had never told anyone. The silly nicknames she gave Leo when he was sleeping, the secret hope she carried for a better life, the small rebellions she committed to remind herself she was alive. Michael listened intently, occasionally reaching out to touch her hand lightly, a gesture that both startled and comforted her. He told her stories of the people he had tried to help quietly, the mistakes he had made, the pressures he had endured as a man of wealth and influence. For the first time, he let someone see him without a mask, without calculation, without expectation. At a small park bench, they sat and watched the city lights reflect off puddles. Michael looked at Maria, his eyes soft. "You make the world feel alive," he said, voice barely audible over the distant hum of traffic. "I don't know how to explain it, but being with you, it changes things. It makes me feel like I can breathe." Maria's throat tightened. "You make me feel seen," she admitted, voice trembling. "I've been invisible for so long, and with you I don't feel like I have to hide." The silence that followed was heavy, but in a comforting way. Neither rushed to fill it with words. They simply sat together, side by side, letting the connection speak for itself. The rain had stopped completely, leaving a cool, fresh scent in the air, mingling with the faint aroma of damp earth and city streets. Then, unexpectedly, Michael pulled a small paper from his pocket. A folded note, much like the ones he had given her before. But this one was different. "I don't want to just see you. I want to be part of your world. Will you let me?" Maria felt her heart pound. The note was a continuation of the spark that had begun weeks ago, now transformed into something real, something tangible. She looked up at him, eyes shining, and nodded slowly. "Yes," she whispered. "I'll let you in." The admission hung between them like a fragile promise. Michael smiled softly, not triumphant but tender. He reached for her hand again, this time more intentionally, letting their fingers intertwine naturally. It was a small gesture, but it carried weight, intimacy, and trust. For the next few hours, they walked together through quiet streets, sharing small confessions, gentle jokes, and tentative touches. Every step brought them closer. Every word broke down another layer of fear and doubt. Maria found herself laughing more freely than she had in years. And Michael found himself smiling in a way he hadn't since he was young. By the time they parted for the night, both felt lighter yet profoundly changed. The forced proximity of the past weeks, combined with the revelation of past wounds, had opened a new path. One of emotional bonding, mutual trust, and fragile hope. As Maria entered her apartment, Leo asleep in his bed, she allowed herself a quiet smile. For the first time in a long time, she felt alive in a way that wasn't just about survival. It was about connection, intimacy, and the tentative beginnings of love. Michael, back in his penthouse, poured himself a drink but didn't sip it. Instead, he stared out at the city lights, thinking of her, imagining her smile, her laugh, the way her eyes lit up when she felt safe and seen. And he realized something he hadn't admitted before. He wanted this. Not just the thrill, the fascination, or the mystery, but the real, messy, vulnerable connection that had begun between them. The week ahead promised challenges, but tonight, for the first time, they both allowed themselves to feel something pure. Hope, trust, and the fragile but undeniable beginnings of love. The days that followed their quiet bonding were some of the happiest Maria could remember. Michael's presence had seeped into her life in small, transformative ways. He would leave notes on her windshield, call with little jokes, or show up at the diner unannounced with flowers or coffee. Leo had warmed to him quickly, and Maria allowed herself moments of laughter and ease she hadn't felt in years. But life, as it always did, has a way of reminding you that happiness is never permanent. It started subtly, with a phone call from the diner manager, warning Maria about a press visit. At first, she didn't think much of it, until a local journalist arrived that afternoon, camera in hand, asking pointed questions about Michael and the rumors surrounding his private life. Maria's stomach tightened. She hadn't expected the outside world to intrude on the fragile cocoon she and Michael had built. That night, Michael came to the diner to pick her up for a dinner he had promised, but he noticed her unease immediately. "Maria? What's wrong?" he asked gently. She hesitated. "The press, someone from the city paper came today, asking about you. About us." Michael's jaw tightened, and for the first time since they had met, she saw the walls return. "I should have expected this," he muttered. "I can't protect you from everything, Maria. I never wanted this for you." Maria reached for his hand. "I don't care about the press. I care about us. I care about you." He pulled his hand away, frustration and fear flickering across his features. "You don't understand, Maria. You don't know the world I live in. The stakes. The people. The scrutiny. If anyone even suspects, it could ruin everything. I can't risk you. I can't risk myself." The words hit her like a hammer. She opened her mouth to respond, but Michael's face was tight, controlled. He left abruptly, without another word, leaving her standing alone in the diner, heart pounding. That night, Maria cried quietly in her apartment. She had allowed herself to feel, to hope, to trust, and now it seemed all of it might unravel. The note she had held on to, the bond that had grown between them, suddenly felt fragile and fleeting. She wondered if she had misread everything. If the pull she felt was just her imagination, or a cruel game of fate. Michael, meanwhile, retreated to his penthouse, tense and restless. The walls he had begun to lower around Maria had gone back up, fortified by fear and old patterns. He loved her, he realized that now, but love alone could not shield her from the world he inhabited. And the world was relentless, unyielding, and unforgiving. Days passed with silence. Maria avoided the diner when she knew he might come, keeping busy and busying herself with Leo. Michael buried himself in work, meetings, and endless decisions, but even the city lights and luxury couldn't fill the hollow ache in his chest. Then came the misunderstanding. A photograph appeared online. Michael at a gala, smiling with another woman, laughing and leaning close. It was innocuous, but the world saw it as scandalous. Maria saw it and felt her chest shatter. The sense of betrayal cut deep. Not because Michael had done anything, but because she had been vulnerable, trusting. And now it seemed so easily replaceable. She confronted him at the diner, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "How could you? After everything. After what we shared, was that nothing to you? Michael froze, eyes wide in disbelief. Maria. Wait. I can explain. That woman, she's a business partner. Nothing like what we have. You have to believe me. But Maria's heart was armored now, shaped by hurt, fear, and the betrayal she believed she saw. I don't know if I can, she whispered, voice trembling. I trusted you, Michael. I let you in, and now I feel like a fool. The cafe around them felt too small, too loud, too suffocating. Patrons glanced at the rising tension, unaware of the storm between the two. Michael reached for her hand, but she pulled away. Don't, she said softly, the words sharp as knives. He stood there, torn, heart aching, desperate. Maria, please. I never wanted you to feel this way. I would never hurt you. You know that. You have to know that. I don't know anything right now, she snapped, tears welling. I can't trust you. Michael's chest tightened, the weight of failure crushing him. He realized that love alone wasn't enough. His wealth, his world, the complications he carried, they had created a chasm between them, one that even honesty couldn't immediately bridge. For the next several days, they avoided each other entirely. Maria focused on Leo, keeping herself busy, while Michael tried to navigate the fallout of the gala and the misunderstanding. Both were left with the raw ache of longing, the sting of miscommunication, and the realization that the walls they had built around themselves were still very real. Maria found herself replaying moments in her head. The brush of his hand, the notes, the way he had seen her. The pain of separation mixed with the confusion of betrayal, leaving her emotionally exhausted. Michael, alone in his penthouse, felt the void that only her presence could fill, the quiet echo of her laugh, the warmth he had begun to depend on, now painfully absent. They were both at their lowest, questioning whether trust, vulnerability, and love were worth the risk. The connection they had worked so hard to build seemed on the verge of collapse. And yet, beneath the pain, beneath the hurt, the truth remained. They were drawn to each other in ways neither could deny. The night sky over the city stretched dark and infinite, reflecting the void in both their hearts. It seemed impossible that they could cross the chasm, that they could find their way back from betrayal, misunderstanding, and fear. But the emotional bond they had built, fragile as it was, still existed, waiting for the right moment, the right choice, to bring them together again. And so, the shatter point had arrived. Trust broken, hearts aching, vulnerability weaponized by circumstance. But deep down, beneath the anger, the fear, and the tears, the seeds of reconciliation were quietly waiting to grow. If they could only find the courage to face them. The city had grown quiet after the storm. The streets empty except for the occasional car or late-night pedestrian. Inside her apartment, Maria sat on the edge of her bed, the photograph from the gala still lying on her dresser. Her chest ached with a mixture of longing, hurt, and confusion. She traced the edges of the frame with her fingertips, her mind replaying every word and glance she had shared with Michael. She could still feel him. The warmth of his hand on hers, the intensity of his gaze, the quiet comfort of his presence. But trust, once broken, is a fragile thing, and Maria felt it teetering on the edge of impossibility. What am I doing? She whispered to herself. Do I even dare to reach out? Meanwhile, Michael paced his penthouse, the city lights reflecting off the glass walls. He had replayed the confrontation at the diner 1,000 times in his mind. Every word, every look, every misstep haunted him. His pride, the very thing that had kept him guarded for years, now clashed violently with his desire to reach Maria. I can't lose her, he muttered to himself. Not after everything, not after finally seeing her, knowing her. Yet fear rooted him to the spot. The fear of rejection, the fear that his world, his mistakes, and his past would push her away permanently. He felt the sting of vulnerability, the rare and terrifying sensation of needing someone with all his heart and soul, and it terrified him. Maria, unable to sleep, wandered to the diner in the dead of night, hoping against hope that maybe, just maybe, Michael would be there. The quiet hum of the street lamps and the faint scent of rain filled the air. When she arrived, the diner was empty, save for the faint echo of her own footsteps. She slid into a booth, the seat cold beneath her, and folded her hands on the table. She thought of the nights she had spent dreaming of love, of connection, of feeling seen. She thought of the way Michael had made her laugh, made her feel alive, made her feel like more than just a waitress or a mother. Her heart wrenched at the possibility of losing him forever. At the same moment, Michael arrived at the diner, drawn by an almost magnetic pull he could no longer resist. He entered quietly, the bell above the door announcing his presence softly. He spotted Maria sitting alone, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the neon sign outside. "Maria," he said, voice low, almost hesitant. She looked up, tears threatening again. "Michael." He approached slowly, unsure if she would let him close. I can't pretend this doesn't matter," he said. "I can't go on without telling you, without asking you to trust me again." Her chest tightened. "And if I can't?" she whispered, voice barely audible. Michael knelt beside her chair, his hand hovering near hers. "Then I will wait," he said softly, "as long as it takes. But I can't walk away. I won't. You are too important, too real, too everything I've ever needed." Maria's tears spilled freely now. She had tried to armor her heart, to protect herself, to ignore the pull, but it was useless. She wanted him. She wanted to trust again. She wanted the love that had been offered, fragile as it might be. I want to trust you," she admitted, her voice trembling. I want this, even if it scares me." Michael's hand found hers, fingers intertwining naturally. "It's okay to be scared," he said, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "But love, real love, isn't about fear. It's about courage. And right now I choose courage. I choose us." For the first time in days, Maria allowed herself to exhale, to lean into him, to let the vulnerability she had carried for so long meet his unwavering presence. She realized that love required risk, required surrender, and that the reward, connection, intimacy, healing, was worth the fear. They sat together in the quiet diner, holding hands, sharing soft smiles, and letting the weight of past misunderstandings dissolve. Words were not necessary anymore. Their hearts had made the choice. The choice to forgive, to trust, to embrace love even in its messy, fragile, imperfect form. The hours passed with gentle conversation, laughter that eased the tension, and quiet moments of comfort. Michael shared stories of his childhood he had never told anyone, and Maria revealed fears she had hidden for years. They found safety in each other's presence, a fragile haven from the harsh world outside. By the time dawn crept over the horizon, bathing the city in soft golden light, Maria and Michael had made their decision. They would no longer let fear, misunderstanding, or external pressures dictate the course of their hearts. They chose each other, fully, vulnerably, courageously. The city woke around them, oblivious to the transformation that had taken place inside the quiet diner. Two hearts, once fractured and guarded, now beat together with the tentative, thrilling certainty of love renewed. They knew challenges would come, that life would test them again, but for this moment, for this fragile dawn, they had chosen to believe in each other. And in that choice, quiet, deliberate, and brave, they found the true power of love. The courage to be seen, to be vulnerable, and to surrender to the possibility of happiness. The morning sun poured through the diner's windows, casting a warm golden glow across the tables and chairs. Outside, the city was awakening, traffic beginning to stir, the scent of fresh rain mingling with the aroma of brewing coffee. Inside, the diner hummed softly with the quiet murmur of a few early patrons, oblivious to the extraordinary moment about to unfold. Maria arrived early as usual, carrying Leo's backpack and a gentle determination in her step. She felt lighter today, a subtle buoyancy in her chest, the residue of last night's choice still lingering. Love, she realized, wasn't about perfection. It was about courage, trust, and the willingness to open one's heart despite fear. And for the first time in years, she felt ready to embrace it fully. As she walked past the counter, she noticed a folded envelope resting atop her usual booth. Her name was written in elegant, familiar handwriting. With a flutter of anticipation, she picked it up and opened it carefully. Inside was a note. "Meet me where it all began. I have something for you." Her heart skipped. She knew exactly what he meant. The diner where it all started, the night of the mysterious tip, the note that had sparked the beginning of everything. She glanced at the clock and realized Michael's shift at his office wouldn't allow him to meet her, unless this was something deliberate. She smiled to herself, a nervous excitement bubbling within her. Minutes later, the diner door opened, and Michael stepped in, carrying a small bouquet of wildflowers, simple, unpretentious, and perfectly him. His eyes searched the room until they found hers, and Maria felt the familiar pull in her chest, the recognition of a connection that had weathered fear, misunderstanding, and doubt. "Maria," he said softly, approaching her booth, "I wanted to give you this first thing this morning, to remind you of the beginning, and of everything we've overcome since." She looked up at him, tears shimmering in her eyes. "Michael, you've given me more than words can say." He handed her the flowers, but it wasn't the blooms that struck her. It was the note tucked beneath them. She unfolded it carefully. "The world tried to keep us apart, tried to silence the heart, but here we are. Because love at last isn't instant. It's earned, it's fought for, and it's real. I choose you. Always." Maria's hands shook as she read the words. She looked up, and their eyes met, brimming with the unspoken acknowledgement of their shared journey. Every moment of pain, every note, every glance, every misunderstanding had led to this. And now, standing at the precipice of a new chapter, both of them understood. They were ready. Michael knelt beside her, taking her hand in both of his. "Maria, I don't need to tell you how much you mean to me. You already know. But I want to spend my life showing you. Will you let me?" Maria's lips trembled, a smile breaking through the tears. "Yes," she whispered, her voice steady with conviction. "Yes, Michael. I trust you. I love you. Let's do this together." He lifted her hand gently, brushing his lips against her knuckles in a tender, reverent gesture. It was a moment of profound intimacy, a silent promise that everything they had endured, the misunderstandings, the fears, the past wounds, had led them here. Leo, who had been quietly watching from a corner, clapped his hands softly. "You two look happy," he said shyly, and both Maria and Michael laughed, the sound echoing through the diner like a balm to their hearts. Over the next few hours, they sat together, sharing coffee, laughter, and quiet stories. Michael told her about plans to support her dreams, to help her and Leo build a life that didn't just survive but thrived. Maria shared more of her hopes, her passions, and the things she had longed for but never allowed herself to dream. Each word, each touch, each glance wove them closer together, forming an unbreakable bond grounded in honesty, respect, and love. As the afternoon sun began to dip toward the horizon, Michael and Maria stepped outside, hand in hand. The streets glistened from the lingering rain, reflecting the warm glow of the city lights. Michael paused and turned to her. "You remember that night, the first note?" Maria nodded. "I do. It changed everything." He smiled softly, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "I want every day to feel like that night, Maria. Surprising, real, full of possibility." She looked into his eyes, her own shining with joy. "Then let's make it so. Together." And with that, they walked into the evening, hearts entwined, ready to face whatever challenges life might bring. Their love had endured the storms, the misunderstandings, the fear, and the doubts. They had chosen each other when it mattered most, proving that love at last isn't just a fleeting moment. It's a journey of courage, vulnerability, and unwavering devotion. As the city pulsed around them, a small note fluttered from Michael's pocket, a final echo of the one that had started it all. "You are more than the world sees. And now we see each other fully." The journey had come full circle. The diner that had been the silent witness to their first spark now held the memory of their trials, their growth, and the triumph of love. Maria and Michael stood together, transformed by the journey, their hearts unshakably united. The storm had passed, leaving only warmth, hope, and the radiant certainty of love at last. And as they walked home hand in hand, the world felt alive, not with chaos or doubt, but with the quiet, beautiful proof that love, when chosen bravely, always finds its way. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end. Your time, your support, and your presence here mean more than words can say. If this story touched your heart, inspired you, or kept you watching, please make sure to subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this one. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss a new upload. Until next time, stay blessed, stay strong, and keep believing in love. See you in the next story.